My name is Aram, and my pronouns are he, him. I'm the writer and producer of the Dungeons & Dragons podcast, Godsfall.
My name's Dylan. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a physicist from Canada.
Welcome to Kill Every Monster. We are an ENnie-nominated, Audioverse Award-winning Dungeons & Dragons podcast about every monster in the manual.
Dungeons & Dragons is many things to many people, but it was designed to be a game about killing monsters. We examine the lore and mechanics of each creature and ask a central question: are they really a monster? Then our guest joins us for an improvised encounter where the creature plays the protagonist.
For our Season 3 premiere, we introduce P.E.A.R.L, the Pixie Extraction and Recovery Legion, and we're joined by a trio from Split the Party as they formed a tiny feywild strike team. Your team has been called to P.E.A.R.L headquarters, which is this old hollowed out tree about 5 stories tall, and each level is a new level of Pixie research and development. The main level has a nice little entry with little Pixie statues all along the wall, and then instead of a staircase, there's just a hollow hole through the floor. You can just fly right up it. There's little gilded balconies on all of them, but today you have a meeting with Commander Tiptoe at the very top of P.E.A.R.L HQ.
We got orders from the top. Must be a big job.
Even though you're pixies and can just fly to the top, I imagine you go in through the entryway anyway, because, you know.
I walk out of respect for me job.
So there's a elder pixie at the reception desk as you walk in. Name?
Fubsy Forrester.
Mm-hmm. And you're here for?
We have a meeting with Tiptoe at the top.
Oh, fancy. All right, well, and she stamps all your badges, and then she hands you all a little piece of candy. Go on.
Much obliged, ma'am.
Is there any orange in this?
No, there's no orange. Well, hang on. Wait, no, hang on. Sweetie, here. Here's a peppermint. You take that one.
Oh, excellent. The joys of peppermints. This is why we fight.
Each of them says that. It just says, this is why we fight in cursive, in little gold cursive on everyone.
And it's all cutesy.
So you guys fly up to the top. Each of the levels has like various little desks and little comfortable pillow areas where pixies are reading or filling out reports. There's pixies flying up and down this corridor. It's a literal beehive of activity. You get to the very top, and Commander Tiptoe is standing there waiting. She's leaning against her desk. She has several folders out, and when she sees you arrive, she snaps it shut, places it on the desk behind her, leans back. Greetings, pixies. Thank you for answering the call.
A nefarious elven wizard has kidnapped one of their own, and nothing would get in the way of our pixie squad from rescuing her.
That force from the kick is enough to launch it up just enough for you to pull it off to the side, and gravity takes over. It clangs to the floor, and immediately, this whole apparatus rotates slightly as if on a hinge and pulls away from the wall.
Mist instantly forms. So whatever the difference was between the two atmospheres, it's just filled with mist that just kind of spills out as she's, oh, no, please, I haven't done anything. I mean you no harm, mister.
Howdy, man. We're here to get you out. Come on. We're P.E.A.R.L.
Oh, P.E.A.R.L.
Fumbler, you're the only one who's not paying attention to this, who wasn't involved in, opening this, which means you're the only one who would notice out the window a flash of bright orange. You recognize it. It's the color of the portal Remmer left through.
Pixies!
We must make haste. We must get out. We must leave right now.
I know you're in there, Pixies!
Oh, sugar.
Honey, iced tea, we're in trouble.
Can I start setting fire to his lab?
I had to leave the spa, Pixies.
How are you gonna set fire to this slab?
Do you know how expensive teleportation magic is, Pixies?
I just want to know in general, because like you don't have any spells that make fire, so I just.
No, but I'm a well-trained Pearl operative. I grab my crossbow bolt. I rip off the other crossbow that's glued to the bottom. I use it as like a flint, and I start going over to like a book, and I just start trying to set a fire.
The dangers of bioessentialism was the main topic of discussion with the Mind Flayer, as we struggled with whether or not the very existence of an illithid makes them evil.
A Mind Flayer must have a minimum of 1 fresh brain per month. Any less than that, and it suffers physical debilitation, becoming so weak that it could die. Its ideal diet is 1 brain per week. A Mind Flayer that consumes 1 brain a week does not feel deprived. It can eat more than that for enjoyment and for the psychic boost, and it will if brains are plentiful. Typically, Mind Flayers consume somewhere between the minimum of 1 brain per month and the ideal of 1 brain per week, averaging 1 brain every 2 weeks and supplementing their diet with other foods.
Yeah, that's a lot of brains. That is 52 brains per year. If they're eaten well.
There are a few times where you should really consider agriculture in your games.
There's no society that has become a society without having a few people farm a lot of food.
A single Mind Flayer requires, on average, about 26, let's say, adult humans per year.
If the society is in a near, not starvation mode, but if they're getting half of their nutrients, that's true. If their nutrient need is 1 a week.
50 people a year need to die. Let's assume that it's got to be an adult brain just for not making it as horrifying as it could be. But that means that you need 20 years per person, and you need 50 of them every year. Like that, the farm doesn't work anymore.
And they need to have a society because they need to have experiences because that's what you want to consume. They have to create art and go on dates and build houses and lay down roads.
Well, you don't have to, but this is like making Wagyu brain, right? Like, yeah, the human's got to get massages. We feed them nice food, and then the brain's going to be the tastiest. But you can also just have a bunch of people sitting in pens. You'd get by.
It's this stuff right here why Mind Flayers are like my one of two exceptions for thralls on like slaves and everything, because it's physiologically they do need a variety of things for them to exist. Like that is just a fact. And sure, I could say, oh, really? They could actually just be leeching off the psychic energy and not killing people and don't actually keep thralls. But and yeah, I could do that. But I also like the horror of what they're doing, and I feel comfortable doing that in a way that I'm not also subjecting my players to being a part of that, because I like there is a place for this kind of alien behavior.
Yeah, when it becomes a story of the alienness of them versus our humanity, and we're using that story to highlight the differences, that's where this becomes actually usable and good for the story. Our guest VJ Harris inhabited the inherent malice of a brain eater who fully embraces their place at the top of the food chain.
I walk forward slowly, and in your head you hear me gloating.
I guess I will not be sharing with you, and you will not be taking my notes back with you, but I'm sure you're going to be delicious. And I wish my brethren weren't so upset with my experimenting. I could let them know I've ended you. Alas.
And I begin the process of burrowing into your head and skull, ripping it open.
As those tentacles close around the top of my head, I fall back into my training, back into my focus, shut out the pain, shut out the horror, and plant my fist directly beneath my chin and summon my sword.
With your mouth open, you expect that sweet, The flesh, it's always so soft, like a fine mousse, a pate even. Then there's a rigidity. Just dead solid. Your mouth is torn open. There's a sharp, stinging sensation. And then immediately, neither of you feels a goddamn thing.
The Rakshasa is a creature of opulence, royalty, and control. They are also important cultural touchstones whose stories stretch back centuries.
Anybody who kills people, who craves and takes either life, land, people, anything of that sort for their own gain is called a Rakshasa. Oh my God, did you see that? He's a Rakshasa. Like, you look at him or her and look what they have done. You don't necessarily even need to reveal a true form of some sort, right? It's about being this person who's so cruel, who is so unable to even control. It's not even like it's an internal want to be evil and to do something to, do it for themselves and better themselves, even if it means hurting others in the process.
Like, their kingdom may be the best kingdom and their people may be the happiest, well-fed people in the entire world because that feeds their own ego, but everyone outside their walls is suffering because he's sucking all the land up.
Exactly. And there you have a Rakshasa.
It pulls back to that initial analogy. It's the Lex Luthor problem of, like, you see him on a billboard and he's the big shiny man who, like, oh, he brought jobs, he brought prosperity, he brought everything. Yes, and also I'm going to kill Superman because I think he's a bitch.
Kingpin's going to invest in the subway. He believes in the city, right? But he's a real problem because of his own ego.
Exactly. And then to me, based off my philosophies, people like Trump is a Rakshasa because to me, he is the embodiment of someone who just keeps taking and taking and taking, wanting for themselves, and using the excuse of wanting to better others' lives is also ultimately feeding their own ego and because it was never about, bettering the lives of others. It was, how can I make myself look better? And how can I feed my own ego and my own cravings, right? And never being satisfied.
KP shared stories of the Rakshasa from his childhood, then manifested a truly villainous Tiger King for the AP encounter.
You say these lands are yours to claim. You say that you have dominion over all things. I disagree. I believe the land escapes your claws, and I wish to prove it. I shall become the object of your hunt. Capture me, and you have proven your claim over these lands. Should I elude you? You must give way.
You just see him stare at you for a second, and then you just hear a low rumbling noise, and eventually it starts building, and you realize he's laughing.
That is intriguing. My afternoon is free. I'll entertain it.
His eyes never leave yours, but there is a very deep and respectful bow.
Then the hunt has begun.
And slam my staff onto the ground and cast Earthquake.
So tell me how Earthquake works, Aram, you massive prick.
You create a seismic disturbance at a point on the ground that you can see within range. For the duration, an intense tremor rips through the ground in a 100-foot radius circle centered on the point and shakes creatures and structures in contact with the ground in that area. The tremor deals 50 bludgeoning damage to any structure in contact with the ground in the area.
The palace remains intact. A fully crystalline room shatters.
And it's just a river under there, right?
It's just a pool. It's a pool. It's a pool of water.
Yeah. In the destruction, just become a cart. Swim through the floor.
Dryads are presented in the monster manual as resentful creatures, punished for the sins of pride and lust. Emily suggested a creature with far more autonomy.
Like that concept of there are fairies that are specifically assigned to a flower, like stuck in my head as a kid. And I really remember really loving those. And I feel like the dryad can be kind of, again, it's a grown-up fairy. It's the grown-up version of that concept of just, you're too big for just a flower. You need a whole tree.
I like this accidental idea of almost the hermit crab dryad mentality of like, well, I was born, I had a dandelion, and then all the wisps flew away and I had to move. So I lived in a rose bush for a while, and then there was an apple tree growing nearby, and that was really nice.
I love that.
I want a children's book of that concept. I want a children's book of that concept now, please. Universe. I hadn't even thought of that, but that is so cute.
Which brings us to a great thing to play on contrast to. For some reason, the decision was specifically the dryads are going to be cursed. It is a fae who specifically fell in love with a mortal under a condition where that love was forbidden, which implies that sometimes love with mortals isn't forbidden. It's like, don't really follow it. And then a dryad is created when a more powerful fae who is mad about her crush goes, no, you get in a tree. Which creates another problem for our whole tree lady situation, because now, why is it tree ladies then? You could very easily tell that story with a dude.
I don't love that aspect of the write-up as it is. Because no matter what you do, it makes it so every dryad, no matter what she's doing, has somehow become bitter, broken-hearted lady living alone in the forest, which is its own set of problem tropes. It's not drawing on anything else. Someone decided, hey, we're going to take a thing that is just women living in trees who protect nature and add on a weird level of somebody in the feywild decides whether or not you're allowed to date a human. Apparently, because it also raises so many questions for me of who decides that? Who cares?
Yeah.
Also, why are we punishing people for love? That's the thing I don't love in fantasy. I hate curses that are derived as hey, you dared to do the very human caring thing of falling in love with another person and wanting to care and be a part of their lives. Too bad. Curse. Why? Let dryads be ladies in trees who are there just because. That's enough for me. I don't need a weird curse explanation. I'm very happy to just go, some trees have ladies in them, and that's great.
A corruption had found the Dryad's woods, and the nice tree lady became the first line of defense against that contagion.
Ella, you can feel right at the edges of your magic. You are too close to the tree. It's getting into it. And Aram, you just immediately feel this searing pain as some of the roots are the same sort of ebony, jagged, and just stab into your foot. They are grabbing you, and they are digging in.
I'm very sorry about that. I did not realize that we were that close to the tree. This is part of why I said that you shouldn't stand so close to the tree. It can do stuff like that when people are too close to the bad tree. I just needed to make you stop. I generally don't like doing that, but you wouldn't listen to me. I need you to understand, seriously, that this tree is very bad, and digging under it will result in you getting very hurt. Not for anything that I will do. I don't want to hurt you. You are a living creature in my domain, and that means that, you're important, as all living things are, to our ecosystem. But I need you to not touch this tree. This tree. Trees aren't supposed to hate. This tree knows how to hate. That's not a thing they're supposed to do. And that, I feel like, is enough of a reason to understand not to touch the tree.
Emily, was Ella here when the tree sprouted? Does she know what it is? Or does she just have the feeling of what it is, and that's more than enough to go off of?
That's a good question. I don't know. What's more interesting? I feel like Ella has been here for a very long time and has been doing this job for a very long time. So it's more of a question of How recent is this tree? Is this tree as old as this forest, or is this tree a relatively new development in your brain?
There are the remnants of a castle, not too far away. Just basically past the edges of where the grove around this tree end and this forest starts to get back to normal. That is completely overgrown. It is a little bit of masonry that implies a foundation. And that's all that's left from the days before this tree sprouted.
There was never a forest here. There was just an orchard, and the vampire was staked to one of the trees in the orchard. The forest grew up around this tree to hide it, to conceal it. It just kept growing and growing to hide this broken castle and this dark tree at the heart of it.
And those are just some of the dozens of creatures we feature in Kill Every Monster.
For more information about us, ways you can support the show, and how you can listen to our bonus podcast DM Notes, you'll find everything you need at killeverymonster.com.
And we'll see you next time for Kill Every Monster.